All change, please.
So somewhere near the end of this fairly standard suburban street in Hainault, East London, past the privet hedges and the parked cars on the front drive, is Hainault Forest, or what remains of Hainault Forest, preserved as Hainault Forest Country Park. And that's where I'm heading this afternoon. Into the forest. Clouds moving in overhead. The threat of rain. I suppose this is England, so there's always the likelihood of rain. I've only seen a portion of Hainault Forest before. I walked around, there's a lake down there. I walked around there one morning. So I've not really walked all the way through it. Confined myself to Epping Forest. And of course, in the past, Hainault Forest was joined together with Epping Forest as part of the Forest of Essex. It obviously got gradually eroded over the years. But Hainault Forest used to extend as far as Leytonstone. Now I think it's something like 300 acres out of the original 3,000 acres of Hainault Forest left. So it's just 10% of what was once a vast area of woodland. That's the route I'm going to take to Lambourne End. And this is another example of the fantastic countryside we have, just accessible on the tube. This is just right near Hainault Station, or you can go up to Grange Hill Station. It's on the brilliant Central Line loop. And we're so lucky, aren't we? We've got this amazing wilderness right on our doorstep. All the arrows seem to be pointing in the opposite direction to which I'm going. I'm going this way. But you know, Hainault Forest isn't the Appalachian Trail. It's not as if step 5 yards off the designated path and you could die. I just might get slightly peckish, that's all. Who said there's no bears in the woods anymore? It does feel like an odd thought, though, to think of this forest being alive with wild animals. Not that long ago, if you think about the time arc of human history, there have been bears and wolves and wild boar roaming around in the forest here. This is the way I want to go, towards Lambourne Well and Lambourne End. And I think there's Crabtree Hill up there as well, which sounds enticing. So we could get a nice sunset up there, or it could be raining. As a child, I used to go walking with my dad every Sunday afternoon over the hills and through the woods. I grew up on the edge of the South Chilterns, between the Thames and Chilterns. A wonderful book by E.S. Roscoe. But I've only recently realised that we only really walked from autumn through winter into early spring, because my dad was a fanatical cricketer, and the rest of the year he played cricket Saturday and Sunday, and I used to go with him. So we only really walked in those other months of the year. So maybe that's why I'm really drawn to the forest in the summer, because it's quite a novel thing for me. Although I spent my entire childhood walking, we only really walked in the woods in the autumn and the winter. And the other strange thing is, my dad used to tell me all the names of the trees. He could name every tree and every plant in the woods. And none of it seems to have stuck. I can remember obviously the names, but I couldn't really identify any of these trees, apart from the obvious ones like the oak and the holly. But the other trees here, like I know there's probably hornbeam here. And there are beech trees. I can recognise beech trees by the colour of the leaves on the ground. And also you can recognise beech slightly because apparently nothing grows beneath it. I remember Dad telling me that, nothing grows beneath beech trees apart from holly. But the other stuff didn't really stick, which is a real shame actually. He also used to bring a knife and make bows and arrows for me, and swords and spears. I can't do any of that. I'm afraid I'm absolutely no good at woodcraft whatsoever. I'm sorry to say. This is a lovely winding path through the trees now as we work towards sunset. Some lovely open fields here on the edge of the forest. Heads off down there, I hope in the direction of Crabtree Hill. Never know with me though. Not a good sign, is it? An abandoned mobility scooter. I imagine the battery just ran out and they have to come back and collect it somehow. It's a shame. Hope everyone was okay. Blackberries. This is literally the only edible one on this particular blackberry bush. This really is a wonderful footpath between these two meadows. Wow, that's really quite sort of stark and striking, that black and white in this landscape. Obviously a change from the Hainault Forest signage at the entrance, which is all kind of very nice and rustic and natural wood. Here they've gone for black and white. So if you can imagine, until about the 1850s, that would have all been covered in trees. That would have been part of the forest, and there was an Act of Parliament which led to the clearing of a lot of the land, which was then obviously later built upon. And these bits remained as fields. Look, there's a lovely field system through there. Now, this is quite different now. Through these young trees and this grassland, I think Crabtree Hill. Might be a rare example of me not getting completely lost. I could be speaking too soon. we're sat here between two London boroughs, the London Borough of Redbridge and the London Borough of Havering. I think the camera here is pointing towards Havering, whereas over here I think Lambourne actually is in, it might be in Epping district actually, so it might not even be in London, it might be in Essex. But I think the dark storm clouds over there are very much sat right over Redbridge. Fine London Borough, Redbridge, I must say. I do like the London Borough, Redbridge. So according to Apple Maps, despite very well marked paths and an ordnance survey map, they still do seem to have strayed away from where I thought I was. I thought I was here. But actually I'm over here. I mean, it's stopped even being surprising, hasn't it? Still, I've got this beautiful view back over Hainault Country Park. Amazing views from up here. Unfortunately, the zoom on my camera isn't really adequate. It's that necessary part of a walk now. Essentially the main part of the walk is finished. And yeah, last hour of light, and you have to start thinking about potentially finding a way back home at some point. Well, I didn't think I'd be seeing you again, my old friend. I've no idea how I've just gone round in a circle. But it could solve the problem of how I get home, I suppose. That's really funny. But, you know, like I say, if you watch a few of these videos, it's totally in character. Looks like I'll be going to Camelot car park after all. It's quite nice to be going back through the forest again. Yeah, I was a whole chunk of the forest further out. I thought I was originally. I'd gone much further than I thought. There you go. Being in the forest in this kind of light reminds me of the walk I did in Rendlesham Forest on New Year's Eve along the UFO trail. And I finished that just in the dying light of the day, obviously in winter, in the shortest time of the year. But there's something magical about being in the forest, this sort of final bit of light. Obviously Rendlesham Forest is much, much bigger. I'll put a link below to that video. 12 minutes away from the Camelot Arms pub. And there, like a shimmering oasis on the edge of the Hainault Forest, is the Miller and Carter pub. Question is, it does look a bit swish for me, all sweaty after my walk. Let's have a look.